On today's whiskey tasting experience, we'll be having 3 Chord blended bourbon whiskey. Welcome to KIllco Whiskey Musings. My name is Brian, and thank you for joining me on this whiskey tasting experience. If you happen to have this whiskey, which is very unlikely, I hope you will join me in this tasting experience. If not, please pour one of your favorite whiskeys, and I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video. And if you find you enjoy this content, be sure to like and subscribe. It takes 2 clicks, and it helps this channel out tremendously. And before I forget, thank you to Zenbood for donating this bottle to the channel. Thank you, Zenbood. You are a legend. Let's start with the actual percentage. 57.3. This is a doozy. I should have had some whiskey before I had this whiskey, but I didn't. And there's a little more I want to show off as well. I found this particularly amusing. Barrel finish 100% heavy toast. Bottled on 4/20/2021. Hee hee hee. Mash bill 73% corn, 20% rye, 7% malted barley. Bottle number 120 of 120. And it's by the Whiskey Mentors. What? If you don't know who or what Whiskey Mentors is, I'm going to link up there to a video done by Whiskey Tribe where I actually went to an event for the first time and met the legendary Irene Tan, who has done quite a few barrel picks. And this is one of them, Butterscotch Sundae. I'd also like to point out, just to myself, if nothing else, this light thing bouncing off that poster is driving me absolutely crazy. I've been trying to work on the lighting for like an hour. Well, oh, that was nice and easy. I appreciate that. I should also mention this is not the first time I've had this whiskey since I did taste it originally at Irene Tan's store. Geesh. Yep, that's not your usual cork, but good cork sound. Okay. Gotta remind myself what the proof is here. I'm realizing nowhere I put this whiskey is it going to be apparent that it's the one I'm using right now. And let us begin by appreciating the color. I shouldn't speak like that. We're in this vicinity. Going over the appearance card here, we have, I'd say this is certainly amber. Not deep copper, but a lovely bourbon color. I really like the color on this one. Clarity, clear as per usual. I have yet to see the bourbon that's got any weirdness in it. Sediments, I should say, and there are none in this one. Viscosity, let's see. It's always an interesting experience. They're light and they are slow. Slow. Typically, I think that means it's a high proof. I mean, I know it is, so since they're moving so slowly, I'll just make that assumption. Can you see them? Do you see it? It's glorious. Und now we begin the nosing technique. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So I already have stuff in the back of my head, since I have tasted this before. And there is, of course, the fact that it's called Butterscotch Sundae. I don't want to say butterscotch because that's too obvious considering the name of it. But then again, Irene's pretty spot on with naming her bottles for specific reasons. Something in here is making me think of mint. So I didn't think of chocolate chip cookies. Got a fruit note there for a moment. I'm leading towards raspberries. Or is that grape I sometimes get? Something kind of earthy about this. On to nosing phase 2 here. Intensity on this, we will say 3. Age, oh boy. Moderate. It's always safe to go with moderate. Barrel, since it's a bourbon, we're going to assume new oak. As for the grain, we know it's mostly corn and rye. Heavy rye, actually, 20%. Smoke, I don't believe I'm getting anything. I find myself thinking about some kind of cigar. I don't care for cigars much. I don't mind the smell usually. On the nose, at least, with the spice category, because we're going to the spice category now. Leather might be in here. Tobacco. I swear there is some kind of mint as well. Sweet. We have to say butterscotch, just because of what it's called. I feel like I should also say vanilla. When I sampled this, I was thinking of a very specific ice cream. Not necessarily Sundae. If you ask me what brand this is that's come to mind, I have no idea. But I remember a butterscotch crunch ice cream. Floral, I want to go with honeysuckle. Wine, there's no wine on this. Fruit, I mentioned grape or berry. I don't know exactly what berry is. I was leaning towards raspberry. Whatever kind of berry it is, I like it. Sulfur. I'm not noticing any sulfur on this. Peat. Well, no. Earth. Here we go. Here we go. Hay. Hay. I'm gonna say. I might be getting a little hay on here. Dirt. I definitely said dirt. I don't quite know why I'm thinking dirt. It's more mud, though. That's the weird thing. That's what's really freaking me out, is I'm thinking mud. And I'm going, when, why, what? And what's been confusing me for most of this, if I'm getting some kind of mint or if I'm getting some kind of herbal note. Or if it's a nutty note. I almost said almonds earlier. Again, it feels like a weird thing to say. I don't think I've ever really thought about what the smell of almonds is. I've had almond butter. I have had almond butter, so maybe it's that. And now we go in for the sip. I will remind people once more, typically when you're having a high-proof whiskey, it's best to have a low-proof whiskey first. I have not done that. I'm still going to enjoy this. Oh yeah, it's hot. Oh, well, right there. Right where the shield is. Oh. All right. If you're new here, I take the first sip and try not to think about it. This is going to be the second sip. Hold it on my tongue for a few seconds, and then we will analyze away. Oh, it's still hot. The mouth feels glorious. It's silky. It's a little bit spicy. I'm getting spices right now. A little bit of tongue tingles. A little prickly feeling in my tongue. It's more caramel than butterscotch to me. A bit of honey as well. A decent finish. Just thought of Honey Nut Cheerios. I'm trying to figure out if that spice is coming from the high rye content or just the proof itself. There's a noticeable oak note at the start. It kind of fades out into this sweetness. It's a little spicy. Alright, and the finish is kind of like putting on a blanket. It has a very nice progression. It's a distinctive beginning, middle, and end. On to phase 2 of the palate. Flavor is sweet. The proof is 4 since we are over 50%. Although it says proof, I often think of whiskeys in percentages for some reason. And if it's over 50% or over 100 proof, I leave it in the 4 category, and it has to be over 120 proof or 60% for me to say it's high. So we're going with 4. Body, I will say, is a 4 as well. Texture on this is actually creamy. Part of why I think it's called Butterscotch Sundae is this wonderful creamy texture. Balance. Does any element dominate? If yes, what? This is actually a tough question because there is no dominant. It has an obvious progression. I feel this is very well balanced because there's a noticeable start where I get just a touch of the barrel, then it goes to sweet and spicy, creamy, and then it finishes with that. I think the rye, the spice, is a little bit apparent in this one. Also, it could be the proof, but that does seem to last the longest, although it is something that lingers in the middle. And as I said earlier, there is a noticeable beginning, middle, and end with this, which you kind of want with most whiskeys. You want to have an experience that has a start and a finish. Speaking of finishes, since I'm doing a video and I'm drinking this whiskey over and over, it's hard to tell how long the finish is, but with this one, I eventually just end up talking at the camera for a little longer, and I'm going to go with 4. Complexity, I'm tempted to say 4, but I feel like this is a 3. Well, it does seem to have a noticeable beginning, a middle, and an end. There is nothing sudden. It doesn't seem overly complicated. There are a lot of standard bourbon notes in this. And though there are a few things where it just seems like it's something else for me in particular, so when things like almond butter come into play, or difficulty figuring out what the fruit note is, where I couldn't decipher it was a grape note or some sort of berry, I feel that would make it more complicated if I could actually nail that down. So if there were more things about the whiskey that I could straight up just say, yeah, this is what I'm getting, that would make it more complex because there would be more defined characteristics. With that said, I am giving it a 3. Normally this is where I would go into tasting notes about this whiskey from the official source. However, this is a special pick from a store, so that's not really possible. All I can tell you is a little bit about Chord itself. As most viewers will know, I do very little research on the whiskey until I try it, And in this case, it was about a musician whose name I can't quite say properly, Neil Giraldo. That was only 3 takes before I had to get it right. And I'm going to read what was written by Neil Giraldo. One night, as I was sipping bourbon in my studio with friends, the conversation naturally turned to music, sound, and composition. We began to wonder how blending the tones of various whiskey together could create a unique harmony of flavor. There was a noticeable beginning and middle and end to this, so they achieved it with this specific bottle. We knew bourbon's role in American music and the American dream. We know we love it. We knew that the blues and the 3-chord progression were a blank score that we could compose on our own masterpiece with truth, heart, and integrity. Don't know why I slipped into the accent there. I always do find it a little amusing when a bourbon company was like, we use truth, heart, and integrity, and it's small batch, and heritage, and time, and tradition. And while I'm not a huge musical person, I don't get the names of musicians right all the time, and I don't know exactly who Neil Giraldo is. I do know he helped with the song, he might have even composed it. I should have looked this up, I didn't. But Love is a Battlefield. We are one, love is a battlefield. So, I like that song anyway. And there you have it, folks. A very special bottle, a very special donation. And I'm actually curious how this would be on the rocks, simply because I always wonder that with high-proof whiskeys. But this one's certainly sippable. I may even add a few drops of water later just to see what it does. However, with that said, live long and prosper. Don't forget to be awesome, and I will see you out there. Thank you for joining me on KIllco Whiskey Musings. You can find my social media and Patreon in the links below. Be sure to like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.